Hey everyone, this is my review of the GoSun Sport. This oven is a lot different from most of the ovens, or rather all the ovens that I review, mainly because of this vacuum tube design. So it's a very unique stove. It starts at $249 and goes up to $359 depending on the options that you choose. They also have other models where it has larger tubes, but this is kind of their main stove that they offer. Comes with the stove, comes with this cooking tray here, which is where you load all your food in, and then it slides into the actual tube here. Then you have this scrubby, which goes on here to the end of the thing, so you can kind of see. And that's what you do is you actually insert it into the tube and you scrub to clean it. Then it also comes with parchment paper to line the tray while you're cooking. I never use these, but they do include them. So, what's unique about this stove here is that it uses this vacuum tube. And this vacuum tube is basically, two layers of glass that are sealed where they, pulled out all the oxygen or the air between the two layers and sealed it. There's a film inside which is black that basically absorbs all the heat and then concentrates it into the cooker. I'll be honest, this was a stove that I was really skeptical about when I first got it. Mainly because of the design. I didn't know how it was going to work. The tray size here is smaller volume basically wise than any of the other stoves. So I was kind of bummed that I let's say couldn't do a whole chicken or something like that. But what I found was that this stove actually won me over big time. This ended up being one of my favorites, which is saying something when it went from kind of the low guy in the totem pole to one of the top on my list. Mainly because it can cook so fast. It cooks significantly faster than any of the other stoves, and that's all because of this vacuum tube. So the vacuum tube apparently can get up to around 500 degrees. I wasn't able to fully test that number, but I would say that it did in controlled kind of testing, basically, where it loaded in identical pieces of food into these ovens and started a timer and checked everything. This cooked the fastest, and it cooked the fastest by a long shot, with the exception of one other stove, which was the All-American Sun Oven. But this still even beat that. So this thing cooks really fast, and what I like about that is that a lot of the stoves you have to be kind of cognizant of it, so you need to plan for it, right? You put it out in the morning or the early afternoon, and then it's ready for dinner. What I found with this is it can be kind of an afterthought in some cases if it's a nice day out. Let's say I get home at 5 o'clock, I want to eat at 6:30. There's a lot of dishes that I can actually cook in this really easily in an hour, 30 minutes in some cases, no problem. So what you basically do is you take this, I always sprayed olive oil in it, and then you just stack your food in here. What I typically would do is put my protein on one side and then my veggies or my side dish on the other side, and it's all one tube here. The tube is a stainless steel, so good construction, wooden handle, which actually can come off here. I'll show you guys. And what's nice about that is if you don't want to have it, you can store it right in the tray, and then you just insert it to keep it. But while you're cooking and everything and moving it around, you keep the handle on it like that. And the handle's a nice wood handle. So you spray with olive oil or whatever. You can use your liners if you want. Load your food in, and then you put it in like that. I found that like most things cook anywhere from 15 to 30 minutes. The trick here is that you gotta watch it because certain things will cook faster than other things. So my proteins would take a lot longer than, let's say, onions or green beans or something like that. So I would kind of have to think about, well, do I, add the food later, or do I take it off early? Typically what I would do is I would put my proteins in, cook it for about 15-20 minutes, then I would add my veggies in, let it cook for another 10 to 15 minutes, and then take it out, and everything kind of lined up right. There were a few times that I did get things mushy, but that's not really the stove. That's kind of me learning the ropes and solar cooking in general. So I'm not going to put blame on that. This thing cooks fast though. Like I said, you can really come home, and if it's like pretty, hot and bright out later in the day, like in the summer, you can, get a meal out pretty easy. The one downside to this stove is the cooking volume. So you really only have this tray. I would think that the company would probably counter saying that, well, you could get, because it cooks so fast, you can do 2 rounds pretty quickly. And that's true. I'm not going to argue that. In fact, I think they even sell an extra in the higher tier. I think the 359 tier comes with 2 of these. So you can load up one, cook it, and then load up the next one while it's cooking, and then you can swap them real fast. But I found this to be really good for 1 to 2 people in terms of food. And, that suits me pretty well because I live on my own. So if I had a friend over or whatever, this was kind of an easy option. Cleaning on this thing is probably the other thing that was my my kind of the other downside to the stove. And that's really because of the length, right? The length of the tube and the length of the tray is that I can't get this all the way into my sink. I can get about 3/4, but it still sticks out of the edge here. So what I would typically do is, rinse it kind of quickly in the sink, and then I would take a sponge with some soap, kind of scrub it good, and then rinse it off. But it was always kind of like a messy affair because there's water getting splashed no matter how careful I was, just because it can't fit in. You wash one half and then you wash the other, and then soap gets down to there and you have to flip it. You're going back and forth for a little bit. So that's like the only downside. The Scrubby does make cleaning the tube much easier. And I think in the higher version they have like a brush instead of just a Scrubby. But this works pretty well. Because this is stainless steel and this is glass, it cleans pretty well, and you don't have to worry about it rusting or anything. The stove itself is built really well. So I'm guessing that this is some kind of polished aluminum. I couldn't find the exact material, but I did leave it out in the rain and it hasn't really rusted. I did have one little spot it looked more like a stain, so I'm not going to call it rust because I think this is aluminum. And then the bottom here is extruded aluminum, and then they have these legs with this plastic coating there. And then I want to talk about the glass tube. So the glass tube, I think a lot of people are skeptical of the glass tube because it is glass. But this is a tempered glass, and it's pretty rugged. Obviously you can break it. It is possible. But I'll be honest, when I was coming in here to do the review, I accidentally dropped this on a concrete floor from about 2 feet up, and it did break. And so what I find is that, I guess all the stoves have glass in them. So this is really no different or less rugged or durable than any of the other ones because they all have glass. I find the tube to be, it hasn't broken on me at all, and so I'm not really too worried about it. And then the benefits of it cooking so fast, I think, outweigh any worry. The big thing that you need to know about the stove is that because the main chamber is glass, you just basically, the one thing you have to watch out for is what's called thermal shock. And thermal shock is basically where something hot comes in contact with something cold, and that temperature difference, especially when it comes to glass, can break it. So there's two things that kind of practically come into play here. The first is when you first load up. Your food's going to be cold in your tray, so you don't want to preheat this oven. It's not like the end of the world if you slide in a cool tray. That's probably less of the worries, but in general, what you want to do is keep it closed like that before you load, while you're getting ready and loading up the food. Then you're going to open it and then slide your food in right then, and it will all warm up and you won't have to worry about thermal shock. The other, and probably the more significant one that you got to watch out for, is you just got to make sure that this cools off before you start to clean it. Because if you have a hot tube or hot surface here and you put cool water on it from your sink, or even warm water from your sink, you can break that glass. So when you're done, what I would do, I would just close it like that. I would go eat my meal. And then what I usually do is take this and move it into the shade. And then by the time I was done cooking and ready to clean, and I'm done eating and ready to clean, then this was completely cool and I could, wash it without any troubles. So the reflector is closed like that, and this whole thing can turn so you can aim at the sun pretty easily. When you're done with it, you take the legs here and you got to grip pretty hard. These are pretty strong, and you just bring that up, and there we go. And you have, it's almost like a case, really. Pretty easy to carry with you. Just take your, there you go, and you can put the handle inside the tube if you want to carry it. What's nice is that the bottom of this extruded metal here is flat, so it'll rest nice and easy on a shelf somewhere if you needed to. They do sell a case with this that's not included in this. I think it is in the 359 model. That's something that I would consider with this, just because I like that to kind of keep it all together. And you got these little things, and you're gonna have some other like things that you use just for solar cooking, and I like to kind of keep that all together in a bag. So that's maybe an upgrade that you consider for that. So that's my review of the GoSun Sport. I hope that was helpful. My name is Ryan Mitchell of thetinylife.com. Thanks for watching.